Wolverhampton Wanderers are on their travels again this weekend as they take on Arsenal. Another away game in London. Hopefully a way for Wolves to get some more points on the board after more controversy last week, well, earlier on this week, actually, on Monday evening. As always, welcome back to Talking Wolves, guys. We're going to be giving my thoughts ahead of this weekend's game, and we'll have the opposition preview later on in the video as well. Do let me know your thoughts and score predictions ahead of this game between Arsenal and Wolves in the comment section, and be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Lots of team news really for Wolves to get through today, but a very quick look at the fixture. Arsenal, as it stands, top of the Premier League. Of course, Wolves beat Manchester City earlier on this season when they were top of the Premier League, but Wolves have never done it away from home against a team leading the table. So form over the last couple of years against Arsenal hasn't been fantastic. When we first came back into the Premier League, Wolves were really solid against the Gunners, but have really struggled, and especially last season, the sort of final game before the World Cup was a home defeat against Arsenal. Then under Lopetegui, we were smashed at the Emirates, and we're hoping we're going to see a much improved performance this weekend, but Arsenal have just come off the back of a really solid win in the Champions League, scoring plenty of goals, got a great defensive record so far this season, so it's going to be a tricky game for Wolves, but Wolves have always do like to surprise us, don't they? When the odds are against us, we like sometimes, we can defy those odds and pick something up and get an amazing result, and maybe tomorrow could be that day again. I'm not going into this game as pessimistic as I would be sort of this time last year, I suppose. But, I think there's that little bit more confidence in Wolves at the moment. Although we haven't been fantastic away from home, I think the overall quality of football and the fact that we've got the ability to start scoring goals now just gives me that little inkling that we can cause teams across the division problems. But Wolves do have the team problems of their own, which I alluded to earlier. A few big players out. Gary O'Neill has had his press conference today and confirmed that Pedro Neto will be out for this game. He's back on the grass, he's back training, but he's not ready for this weekend's game against Arsenal. You would assume maybe Tuesday's game against Burnley is also too soon. Ryan Aït-Nouri is also out. There were reports from Africa that he could be out up until around Christmas time, and then obviously he's off to the Africa Cup of Nations, so Wolves may not well see him now until Feb. But Gary O'Neill is still confident that he could take a part across most of December as well. And obviously two big absentees in the middle of the park as well. Both Mario Lemina and João Gomez, both injured, which you would expect means nailed-on starts for a couple of players, which we'll speak about shortly. With those players, obviously being Boubacar Traoré and Tommy Doyle, there's not a lot of central midfield depth on the bench, but could we see some surprise entries on the bench? Joe Hodge is actually injured, so it won't be him. Bruno Jordão has played a lot of games recently for the under-21s. Tawanda Chiraoa, hopefully I've said his name right, the young midfielder we signed from Ipswich earlier in the summer, has really kicked on and really impressed so far, and been with the first team squad over the last couple of away games. So you would expect possibly he will be on the bench. I watched him play last week against Sparta Prague under 21s and seemed really impressive. So he could be part of things as well. So let's wait and see. I think it's let's move on to my predicted lineup. I think this team is probably going to be pretty close to what will start against Arsenal. Gone with Jose Sarr once again in goal. Back five, I've brought in Hugo Bueno, back from injury, was on the bench against Fulham, but Matt Doherty actually got the nod ahead of him. So it would be interesting to see if Doc does get the start, but I feel Hugo Bueno should get that start. I think Max Kilman, Craig Dawson to come back in for Santiago Bueno, who wasn't awful on Monday, but I think Craig Dawson keeps that place alongside obviously Totti Gomez as well. Midfield two, Boubacar Traoré alongside Tommy Doyle, an untested midfield two so far this season, so let's see how those two get on. And then the front three, once again, of Jean-Auric Bellegarde, Hwang Hee-chan, hopefully continue his hot reign of goal-scoring form, and Matheus Cunha as well, who did grab a goal on Monday as well. So, looking forward to it. Really hoping that we can upset Arsenal, but the odds do seem to be against Wolves. And I think that a lot of fans are disrespecting a couple of the players. I think we're looking at obviously the Netos, the Eight Nouris, Bubakars, and Tommy Doyle's. Sorry, the Netos and Eight Nouris being out, and the Doyles and Bubakar Traore coming in. And people are saying, "Oh my God, we're going to get smashed. We're going to this, and this." But these are Premier League players. These are very good footballers, and anything can happen. They have got the quality to upset Arsenal. Bubakar Traore and Tommy Doyle are different sort of players to João Gomez and Mario Lemina. So it'll be interesting to see how they play together and how they adapt to the situation. Because the energy that Bubakar Traore does bring could unsettle Arsenal and could frustrate them. And the quality, the dead ball quality of Tommy Doyle could be a real asset. When you grab a corner or set pieces against these big teams, you've got to make the most of it. Or you get a set piece from 20, 25 yards out, you've got to make the most of that. And Tommy Doyle genuinely could make a difference in doing that tomorrow as well. But to talk more about the game, I spoke to James from Aftv to get the Arsenal perspective ahead of this match. So then, guys, delighted to be alongside James here from Aftv. James, thank you very much for joining me, mate. Good to see you feeling festive with your little Christmas tree in the background as well. How are you keeping?
Christmas tree in the background. I've got a hat. This is probably the first time I've ever worn a hat like this on, any content because I was still doing some stuff at the AFTV outside the Emirates, and there's cold, and then there's like if it snowed, it wouldn't melt. I mean, it
Yeah.
is unbelievably cold. So yeah, I'm wrapped up. I'm in a nice thick jumper. Um, I feel for the players going out there in this, but to be honest, they're ready for it, so it's all right.
Yeah, no. It should be an interesting game tomorrow, mate. I mean, Arsenal, top of the league at the moment, doing really well defensively, been really solid. Only lost the one game so far in the league, and obviously a massive win in the Champions League as well during the week. What's your thoughts and what's the atmosphere and the mood like amongst the Arsenal fan base about the start to this season?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's good, but it's weird because a lot of comparing to last season is happening at
Of
the
course.
moment. Last year, we scored a lot of goals. We outscored the Invincibles 20 years ago. Um, we were also a bit of a surprise package. You know what Zinchenko was doing, what Jesus added to the team, Martinelli, Saka goal contributions through the roof, and we played some of the in my opinion, I'm an Arsenal fan and biased. I felt we played the best football across the whole season. I think when City clicked, they were pretty irresistible.
Yeah.
But when you're looking at the whole 38 games, I thought Arsenal were the league's entertainers. It wasn't enough to get us over the line. So what we're seeing now is Arteta learning from that, is playing a style of football that basically says we don't want to go 3-1 down at home to Southampton. We don't want to throw away 2-0 leads at West Ham. But it also means that we're not as expansive, we're not as open, we're not as exciting. And either that or the fact that Arsenal fans quite quickly, may I say, because these things can turn around the other way very quickly, have quite quickly got used to being in a title race. So the novelty's worn off a little bit, and
Yeah.
now it's like serious business. Last year was great fun, the energy was there. But a lot of money's been spent and a lot of patience has been given to Arteta in this team. And they deserve it because they've come a long way. But now it's this season to really get serious. And I think what you're seeing is a slightly tempered kind of excitement amongst Arsenal fans.
Yeah. I think I remember maybe not last season, but the season before, definitely as well. When Arteta, there was it was still very early days, the first season or so of Arteta. There's just, are they going to get into Champions League? Are they not? And then last year, really, really kicked on. I mean, we lost,
Mm.
twice to you guys last season towards the end of the year. Obviously, one of our last games, you absolutely smashed us at that point at the Emirates. And I'm hoping, obviously, we come into this game now. I think we've got a lot of absences, which we'll talk about, but I think Wolves fans are sort of going into this game a little bit calmer than last year, because last year I think we knew going away at Arsenal it could be a disaster, and that's exactly what it was. What has changed? Do you think? I mean, like you said, not maybe not as open as you were now. And I talked to Turkish on AFTV earlier, and I said sometimes City aren't the best, aren't the most attractive, but they know how to get the job done. Is that what Arteta's tried to? What's he changed to try and make that happen at Arsenal this season?
Yeah, I mean, kind of it. It's hard to say because I mean, Jamie Carragher was talking about it on Monday Night Football. You still have Zinchenko starts at left back that comes into midfield. You still have Havertz getting forward where Xhaka was last season. He's taken a real while to kind of get into it, but the
Yeah,
last few games we've had real signs of life there. It's more it's like the same 11 are on the pitch and the same practices and combinations are there. It seems to be there's just a handbrake on. There's just that extra run from deep, that extra, couple steps up the pitch, whatever it might be. It seems there's just been a little bit of a drawback, just to ensure that I think Arteta's theory, and we've really hashed this out over many months on AFTV and amongst us Arsenal fans in the community, what on earth is going on? I think the idea is you're gonna create enough to win a game. Maybe City, maybe Liverpool away, maybe there are gonna be obviously a handful of games where you don't. But
Mm.
largely, Arsenal have the quality to create enough. Just make sure you don't let anything in the back of your net. And
Yeah.
when you look at the running, people talk about, Arsenal bottling it in the running. I mean, they did in a lot of ways, but they also scored 3 at home to Southampton. That should be enough to win it. They also
Yeah.
scored 2 away at West Ham. That should be enough to win it. They were 2-0 up at Anfield. They did the job and then just threw it away. And so I think Arteta knows that this team can get goals. But while we're also managing the return of Champions League football, which means our first 11 going out twice a week, we didn't have that. We haven't had that for about 7 years. I think there's been a reluctance to go full throttle. And while it's
Mm.
taken a while for us to really understand it, I think we're getting it now because going to the 1st of December, not at our best, but top of the league is that I mean, that's a really good thing, no? So
Yeah.
it's taken us a while, but I think that's the idea.
No, I think that's right. I think sometimes you need that. Arsenal sort of before last season hadn't been in a proper title race for a long time, and I think it's very quick. I mean, it's very easy as well to when you got that momentum, you're winning games, thinking right, we could just go for it and beat everyone. And I think you're right. There are some times that those games where you do need to be a little bit more cautious. Like this, for argument's sake, this if this fixture happened a lot earlier last season, Wolves could have easily done the same thing. But I think that's almost maturity from Arteta's side and obviously the players' side, just getting used to it, knowing that you are good enough to win football matches, but you do have to be cautious at the same time. And
Yeah,
like
I
you said,
agree.
with playing on, Premier League, Champions League, FA Cup coming up as well, you do have to be careful with the game time and how you manage things as well. But do you think is the expectation for Arsenal fans to be in that title race again, or is it just getting to Champions League football, or what are the thoughts? What are the discussions that you're having on the podcast at the moment?
Yeah. I mean, the Arsenal fans' expectation will always be to do as best as possible, and the title race is obviously a part of that discussion. I think for the first time in a long time, I think there's a feeling from Arsenal fans that the expectation from the hierarchy and the ownership is to challenge for the title and
Mm,
significantly challenge for the major honours because you don't spend £105 million on Declan Rice if that's not and 65 million on Kai Havertz. I mean, because Kai Havertz didn't have a great 3 years at Chelsea, despite that Champions League winner, despite there's talent before and all that, the fact it hasn't gone well for him, the Havertz sign is kind of seen as, yeah, you signed Rice, but you signed Havertz as the improvement of what we had last year. But when you just go down to cold hard fact, £170 million was spent on our
yeah,
midfield alone. And then you add Timber and a new goalkeeper and what's gone on there. So I think there is an expectation amongst the hierarchy. Like, we are giving you whatever you want. We're giving you £170 million worth of 2 midfielders. We're giving you a new goalkeeper for 30 million because that's what it's going to cost once. I think
yeah,
it's confirmed now that we're basically getting him. We're seeing through the option to buy or whatever.
yeah,
On top of what was already a £30 million goalkeeper. So the expectations are running through the club, I think, which is good. I mean, it's a long time since we've been able to say that. But that's a really good thing because us as fans have always felt, well, come on, Arsenal, we haven't won it in 20 years. Surely 20 years on from the Invincibles, we can finally do it. But I think because of the outlay and the time given to Arteta, and he's been given the keys to the club, literally, I think there's got to be a feeling like you better be doing something really, really good with it. And it
yeah.
feels like he is. Let's just hope he sees it through.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I mean, you've mentioned a couple of great players there. And who else is on form? Who else the Wolves really need to look out for tomorrow?
Gabby Jesus is starting to hit form. He does this thing where he basically goes away for the international break. Obviously, he goes all the way to Brazil to play, and he comes back that first game in the Premier League, and he did it away at Chelsea, away at Brentford. He just looks a bit sluggish, doesn't look quite as sharp, and then he comes alive in the Champions League. He has like the most incredible record in the Champions League. It's unbelievable,
Yeah,
and I think that we saw him against Lons, and you thought, okay, he's twisting and turning, and he's so wriggling, he's so difficult to stop. The wingers, Martinelli and Saka, aren't in great form, but their output is especially Bukayo Saka. I mean, his numbers are incredible. I mean, 7 goals and 10 assists in all competitions, and it's
Wow.
1st of December, and he hasn't really found his best, according to Arsenal fans. But, he gets double teamed a lot, which I think he finds quite difficult. Saliba's in great form, and Declan Rice is running midfield. But having said all that, I mean, while there's a lot to be positive about, there are players that haven't really clicked. I mean, I mentioned the wide players. They're not as electric as last year, though Saka's been very productive.
Mm.
Odegaard is the Odegaard of last year, where it just felt like you couldn't really stop him. He was just kind of poetry in motion, making things happen. Zinchenko is getting there, but he's not at his best. Like last year, we saw him just running games, and he felt like another number 10 on the pitch, but we just chucked him at left back. And then Ben White was like this overlapping, kind of totally complete right back, and he's not been in form. It's Tomiyasu who's been taken. He's not
Yeah.
been in bad form, but these players set really high standards from last year, and that's what we kind of keep looking back to. So there are opportunities for Wolves to think there are players that aren't what they were. They're not doing what they were doing last year. Um, though there are others, like I said, like Rice and Jesus in the middle of the pitch. They're really taking control of games.
Mm. I wouldn't have expected you to watch every single minute of Wolves so far, but I mean, ahead of this game, bearing in mind Neto's going to be out, so no Neto tomorrow. Is there anyone else in that Wolves squad that concerns you, or that you'd be interested to at least watch tomorrow at the Emirates?
I've kept a good eye on Wolves actually
Mm.
because the O'Neill story is very interesting.
Yeah,
Came in at Bournemouth. Don't really talk a lot about him. I didn't really know who he was. He kind of secretly did brilliant. Like,
yeah,
he kept them up, a really great run. Maybe fell off towards the end of the season, but didn't matter. Some really good away results and performances kept Bournemouth up. Um, we saw his Bournemouth side come to the Emirates and give us a really tough game. Then he gets sacked, and the feeling was that's really harsh from the outside, but the feeling from Bournemouth fans was, no, no. If you watch this football and
yeah,
you
yeah,
saw it, you'd
yeah,
understand why. I thought, okay, fair enough. I'm not going to tell you what you want for your club. But then when I watch Wolves, I think, is this the football they were complaining about? Because there must have been something different. Because I'm liking the way Wolves are playing. There's an intensity. They can go from a back four to a back three or back five with wing backs.
mm,
And they've really stuck it on the teams higher. I was about to say the bigger teams, but I don't always like saying that. The teams at the higher end of the table. I mean,
yeah.
Liverpool came and won 3-1, but that wasn't a 3-1 game at all.
No, no,
Um, Never deserved to lose at Old Trafford. And then I was actually really happy for you, not just because it helped Arsenal, but I was really happy for you guys beating Tottenham and City because your performances had merited them. You slowed down Villa, you slowed down Newcastle. So Wolves are like, we're very wary. Like we've talked about on AFTV, no joke here. There's kind of a
yeah,
there is a running joke that you guys are due a good VAR decision because
yeah. We
I
are.
mean, we felt we've had some bad ones and a
Mm,
fair share. You have a catalogue, um, so that is also in our minds a little bit. We're like, ooh,
yeah.
I could see a soft one, but look, in fairness, like Wolves have played brilliantly and are you know they're doing good things against those bigger sides that I think Arsenal need to be very wary of. The one thing I'd say is obviously you mentioned some players missing. That is, I think,
Mhm.
going to Pedro Neto. He's not going to be fit, is he?
Neto's injured. Ain't Nouri's injured. Lamina and João Gomez both suspended.
Yeah,
Normally our
they're
starting
big
two
ones.
midfielders. So yeah, they're all
They are
four
big
big ones,
ones.
really. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I kind of expected Neto, but the energy in midfield of Lamina and Gomez is like who would come in their absence then?
Tommy Doyle and Boubacar Traore is what people are
Like
expecting. So
I've seen
Tommy
little of
Doyle's a good player.
Traore. He looks all right, doesn't he?
Boubacar Traore, yeah, he's not played a huge amount. He played against Arsenal at Molineux last year, and he was okay,
Okay.
I thought.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
both good footballers, just not really. Well, we've not never seen him and Doyle play together,
Mm.
and not had a huge amount of game time. So that's why it's sort of going into the unknown at the Emirates. A lot of Wolves fans are upset and disappointed, but I still think these two are good footballers. So it'll be an
Yeah.
interesting and good opportunity for them, I think.
What about is it Bellegarde?
Yeah, he should
Th
start.
He looks
Yeah,
really lively.
yeah,
I
yeah.
haven't followed enough of Wolves to know exactly what position he is. He seems to be able to do wide central midfield. Where is
Yeah.
he? He's kind of a bit of everywhere.
Yeah, I think he'll probably start out. Well, again, it depends how we set up. It's normally sort of starts out wide right, but like you said, can
Mm.
drift in field, play centrally as well. So,
He looks
um,
exciting.
yeah, he's a really good player, good signing. I think obviously Pablo Sarabia did quite well against Spurs,
Did really well,
um,
yeah.
but he only had sort of 5-10 minutes, got a goal and assist, and didn't play any part of the game against Fulham. which he was disappointed about. So I don't think he'll start against Arsenal, but again, I think I'd expect to see him get some minutes at the Emirates as well. But
Yeah, and also you've got Hwang and Cunha who seem to be in good form as well. Is it Cunha's 5 goals in the league this season now? I think that's a I made that up
Cunha,
or I heard that on commentary. Do you know what?
maybe not
It's
that many. I don't think Cunha's
let me
got
fact
two. I
check.
think
Oh, wow, is that little? Well, I heard something on commentary which is why you just shouldn't,
maybe the
listen
five
to
goal contributions. Maybe I'm not sure. But
Oh,
Hwang's doing really well. So our top goal scorer last season only got 5 goals in the Premier League, I think, or 6 goals, and
it is
Hwang's already
5
on
goal
7 or 8.
contributions, 3
Yeah,
goals,
yeah,
2
it is.
assists.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
there you go, fine. So, yeah,
yeah,
he's
yeah.
doing his thing to a degree, so,
Yeah, but Hwang as well. So yeah,
mm.
it'll be interesting. I think I would expect Arsenal to have a lot of the ball. Wolves will want to play on the counter attack, but I think for the sake of the Wolves fans travelling to the Emirates tomorrow, they won't want it to be as embarrassing as it was last season at the Emirates. And I think,
No, yeah, I don't think it will be. Sorry to cut you,
yeah,
I really don't
no,
think it
it's all
will
right.
be.
Yeah, but I think the main issue for Wolves is they're scoring a lot of goals, which we didn't see. Arsenal aren't conceding a lot. I think Arsenal, I read an amazing stat, just it's probably popped up on the screen during the preview. Um, Arsenal have scored in their last 31 meetings against Wolves in all competitions. They've never, we've never kept a clean sheet since 1979. So you would expect, I mean, if you're going on off form, both teams probably to score and Arsenal to win it, I would assume. Um, but it's for Wolves away from home. We've struggled with that consistency. You mentioned some great home wins, but we haven't really been able to replicate that form away from home. So this is why, especially with the absences, it will be an interesting one.
Yeah, it will
What are you
be.
thinking though, James? If I could trouble you for a score prediction,
No, not
what's
at
on your
all.
mind?
I went 1-0 on this, 1-0 to the Arsenal on this sort of league table thing we
Yeah,
do. I fear that this is everything Arsenal have sort of struggled to come up against. Energy in midfield that disrupt our rhythm, that get the
yeah,
likes of Kai Havertz not having the time and space to settle. Um, I think you might play a back three.
yeah,
Dawson, Kilman, just difficult. They win headers. They just can defend the area well. We saw against Haaland and City. Um, but I think we'll have enough because look, even if you had your fully fit first 11 out there, of course I'd have to back us to win. I'd
of
have to. I
course.
mean, I can't sit here and say, "Yay, we spent 170 million pound on midfielders," but I've got to. We're hitting some decent form, but I've gone 1-0 just because I think you'll be really stubborn, and in a weird way, in a very weird way, injuries and suspensions almost encourages that more resolute approach rather than perhaps being a bit more expansive, a bit more taking the game to us. I mean, when O'Neill came with Bournemouth, who I don't think have the players you guys have or didn't last
Hmm.
season, they left a lot of players on the counter attack. They came straight at us from kickoff with a really clever routine, and they, while defending their goal, they threw punches, and I feel that feel Wolves might wait for their opportunities more in this game.
Yeah,
So it's about Arsenal trying not to allow them. And Gabriel and Saliba have been brilliant at doing that in games. Tomiyasu, White, Zinchenko, all of them, they've done their bit. Rice has been immense at slowing down transitions for the opposition, being that shield. But I also fear that because we're so good at that, we're not going to be as free flowing as we have been all season. So I'll go 1-0. I think we'll
yeah.
nick it.
I think it'll be a very close game. I think my head is saying that Arsenal will edge it and get the win. My heart is saying that Wolves do grab something, but
Grab a
let's
point. No,
let
it wouldn't surprise me. The way you're playing against, these sides, it wouldn't surprise me. I'd be very disappointed as an
yeah, of
Arsenal
course,
fan,
yeah.
but it wouldn't surprise me, no.
Yeah, well, let's wait and see. James, thank you very much for jumping on Talking Walls again. It's been a
Thanks,
pleasure
Rick.
as
Thank
always,
you.
mate. I'll make sure I leave a link to obviously AFTV and James's social links in the description down below. And yeah, James, thank you very much. And I'm sure I'll catch you on the reverse fixture as well, man.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me as always. I really enjoy it. Thanks, mate.
Cheers, man. Thank you. So big thanks to James. I'm sure you all know who AFTV are, but I'll make sure I leave a link to their channel in the description down below as well. I jumped on their channel as well for the box to box. So if it's out yet, be sure to go and check that one out where I speak about Wolves to that channel as well. And yeah, score prediction. I think Arsenal will edge it, guys. I feel like they've got enough quality to beat us, but never underestimate Wolves. I think we could easily sneak something. A point would be amazing on the road, to be honest. But our away form just needs that little bit more consistency. But the next week, Burnley and then Forest, two big games, two winnable games for Wolves. So I think if we can grab something out of this game and obviously get those wins next week as well, that would be huge. As always, guys, do let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Be sure to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you're new, and I'll catch you next time.